in my notes I sent you, I big onto this evolutionary mismatch concept. You kind of articulated earlier, where we were, men are meant to be like, expend as little calories as possible, preserve as much. All that kind of description you kind of gave. I fast forward us to current society, and I'm always wondering, are men more out of place by their default in modern day society? And is there something in us men that just kind of like, evolutionarily, it's really, it's tough to say, oh yeah, we can just, our default, we just exist in this hyper, commercialized and hyper connected society. It's really, we're not, right? We're not supposed to be interfacing with thousands and thousands of people, on a daily basis because you have a phone, right? We belong in small tribes where isolation from that tribe meant you would die, right? And
Literally.
all this sort of evolutionary mismatch. And I just get at like, and again, it's for me to try to understand myself and other men that may be struggling, because I like to bring up that evolutionary mismatch where, yeah, it's we have to understand that there's a sort of relationship there between our biology and society that's not in phase, right? It's out of phase a little bit, and I think knowing that is important. So you can first of all recognize it, like, these feelings I'm having of, if you just look at it objectively, you have one partner that you're going to have sex with forever. That's kind of weird evolutionarily, right? I believe it's the right thing. We're not animals. I totally believe in that, right? But your default is kind of weird, right? You're sitting in a queue with fluorescent lights day in and day out that so many men have to do. It's not the default. Our biology is saying, get out, get into nature, chase an animal once in a while, go hunting, just feel the sun. There's so many things I think we accept as normal today, and I think it adds to the not feeling so good day in and day out. And I feel like more of us need to address that, recognize it, do hard physical activity. Being sedentary is so bad for us. Eating the shit food is so bad for us. Sitting on our ass all day is so bad for us. Social media is so bad. I mean, so I always go back to that. I know this is a long-winded sort of explanation here, but I think understanding the underpinnings of who we are biologically as humans, I feel like sometimes impacts men sometimes more as a mismatch in current day society than women. And I might be wrong about that. I don't know. I feel like, again, I've never been a woman. I can't describe it. It seems like it's basically, I'll summarize with this. It seems like they figured it out better than we have. That's what I'll end with. Like, they just seem to, their default is very much what society needs. And our default is kind of like, hey, don't be careful. Those primal urges are going to fuck you up. And am I onto anything there, or am I just coming at it the wrong way?
Mean, I think I understand what you're saying. And yeah, when you talk about these primal urges, and I wouldn't even say primal urges as much as, because that almost has a negative connotation to urges, like, but there is a sort of primal side of men that we have in a way evolved out of. Almost like life is easy. You don't have to go out and hunt your food. You just go down to the local, natural foods or whatever they call it, and pick out your soy-based, vegan, grass-fed, whatever.
Yeah.
That's pretty convenient. Like, when's the last time that anybody listening to this podcast has dealt with a face-to-face encounter with another human where their life was at risk? I know it happens. I'm not saying it doesn't. Right. But the odds of that happening are drastically reduced relative to what they were 1,000 years ago, or maybe even 100 years ago. So the odds of us having to go out and defend ourselves or our women or our property is less than it's ever been. Our access to resources is more abundant than it's ever been. We're not dying of medical complications that our forefathers died of even 50, 60, 70 years ago. That's not happening. We're living longer. Look at what we're doing right now. I mean, we used to have this conversation around a fire, naked, cold, starving, and the risk of a neighboring warring tribe coming to kill us while we're doing it.
Right.
And now here we are in this climate-controlled building. Where do you live? Are you in Boston? Oh, you're in DC. So you're on the other side of the country, and here we are having this conversation using this incredible technology, reaching tens, if not hundreds of thousands of people. That's incredible.
Both still naked,
and it's
though.
Easy. Yeah.
Oh, you're not?
In case you're not, in case you want to check this out on YouTube, you might want to.
Yeah. No.
Or
Yeah.
don't pan down below the shirt, below the
I got
waist.
a half
right?
shirt on, nothing else.
That's right. But yeah, life's just easier. And so the role of man has, in a lot of ways, I'm hesitant to say it this way because I don't want people to take it out of context, but what we're naturally built for is a little bit more obsolete than it once was. But that said, it doesn't mean that we can't harness our characteristics for productive outcomes. I talked about it in my last book, Masculinity Manifesto. Violence, dominance, aggression, stoicism, competitiveness. These are things these are virtues that have negative connotations to them, but wielded correctly through capable men, righteous men, they can actually have very positive outcomes. Competitiveness, are you kidding? It's not bad. That's good.
Absolutely.
Everything that anybody's listening to right now for this podcast, or the dresser or the desk that they're sitting at and the bed that they're sleeping in, was built off the back of competition, healthy capitalistic competition. Like when you went into the store, you actually evaluated, it's likely that you evaluated cost versus quality when you bought that bedspread that you have on your bed. Well, that's a product of competition.
Absolutely.
So we mock these things, and yet we are the benefactor of these things. People will complain about wealthy people, and the wealthy need to pay their fair share, and they're doing it on this computer, this supercomputer that's in their pocket. They're not worried about food. They're not worried about somebody murdering them. They've got this technology, and they're complaining about wealthy people. You're wealthy.
Yeah.
Like, what are you complaining about?
Complaining on a phone.
You're a wealthy person.
Complaining on a phone that was probably delivered in one day because Amazon did what they did based out of capitalism.
Right. Exactly.
As opposed to waiting. By the way, there's batteries in these phones that children in the Congo are digging in horrific environments, by the way. So we all got to be careful about getting a little too righteous. So yeah. So
right.
dig into that.
Right.
It'll blow your mind. But anyway. Yeah.
Yeah. No, it's
wild. Yeah.
But we don't want to dig into that. We just want the damn thing to work.
Right.
We don't want to know why or how or no.
Well, but then I got to tweet.
Not me.
I got to tweet to other people how how socially responsible they are because they don't have a whatever in their Twitter bio or whatever the next thing is when they're just literally tweeting.
Or they're driving a Prius. Or
yeah.
whatever,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah. Well,
yeah.
So,
which is fine. Like, drive a Prius, sure, but like let's be realistic about what's actually happening. And you're a recipient of the things that you're complaining about.
Absolutely. None of us are not. I think we all have to be a little bit more humble about. Yeah. And yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah. Well, let me ask you this. I'm curious about your I assume, I don't know you personally, but how has your faith affected your viewport on all of this? I feel like, again, I think I see, I think we share a lot of things in common. How has your faith shaped your answers to my questions, your outlook on life, your everything? I mean, if faith cannot not, if you're a faithful person, it sort of underpins everything you do in life, how you think. You fail a lot, but you have a certain moral compass. What's your walk in faith? How's that been how's that supported your journey?
Yeah, I mean, I would say I'm spiritual in that I believe in God. Religious, maybe not quite so much religious, but that being said, I'm not anti-religion either. There's a lot of people who are. It's like, oh, religion is the root of all the things that are wrong in this world. I don't think that. I think religion is a great way to build in traditions and customs based on moral principles. It's a way to band with other people and connect with other people who believe similar to you. Like I think the institution of religion can actually be a very powerful thing if it's done in righteousness. If it's used to perpetuate evil, then of course I would say that's not a healthy thing for society. But yeah, I think having a higher power or something to be striving towards, and even an eternal perspective, is really crucial for me because it helps me see that what I'm doing now not only impacts me in the moment, but impacts me eternally, forever. But it also helps me see things in perspective, that even though something goes wrong in this life, or I'm dealing with a particular struggle or a challenge, like that's a blip on the radar in the grand scheme of things. And the way that I respond to these situations is more important than the situation itself. The situation is going to go away. It will expire. And even if it doesn't, you're going to start feeling differently about the current reality that you're in. And it's not going to hurt as bad if you're struggling, for example. But if you have some sort of moral guide in the way that you operate, it's unwaivable. It's unshakable. So society might tell you, oh, you got to act like this and do that and do this. And you're so grounded in your beliefs that you cannot be stirred or shaken into doing something that goes against your moral or your virtue. It's a great litmus test for the way that you operate your life. When you're confronted with two or more choices, you choose the right one. Well, what's the right one? You already know what the right one is, especially if you have some sort of objective moral compass guiding that decision. And when you feel guilty about making a decision, it's because you know you didn't choose the right one.
Right.
There's situations where you genuinely don't know if you should do this business thing or that business thing. That's not what I'm talking about. I'm talking about moral choices.
Yeah.
If you see somebody struggling on the side of the road, do you help that person? You already know you should help that person, right? If you see a friend in need, do you ignore it or do you sacrifice your own well-being to serve that other person? We already know. If we're going to be angry or vindictive to somebody, do they deserve that and we should do that? Or do they not deserve that and we should afford some grace? We already know the answer to it.
Right.
And that's a powerful way to live, because if you're doing it correctly, and I'm not saying I do all the time, but if you live to that standard, your guilt melts away, the shame goes away, and you can hold your head high and your chest out and feel confident in the way you're marching forward in your life, regardless of the circumstances you find yourself in.
Are you a Christian? I mean, I would assume you are.
Christian.
Okay. You don't say that word too often, but I mean, I am as well. And you say things like we're fallen, we're not born good. Like you say, you can just see the tenets. I'm like, oh, he thinks the Bible is more than just a bunch of cool pages that some philosopher wrote. I can,
personally, I do. And look, I don't actually care if you don't. And the reason I say that, actually, I'll give you an example. We were in one of our Iron Council calls this morning. We do a call every Friday morning, and we were talking about how do you know if you made the right decision and like, how do you evaluate it? And I pulled up, I think it's, let me just see. I think it's Matthew 7:16 through 20, I believe. Let me just pull this up real quick. Yeah, that's it. So Matthew 7:16 through 20, and I'll just read the first one, verse 16. It says, "Ye shall know them by their fruits. Do men gather grapes of thorns or figs of thistles?" Like, that's the answer. And I don't care if you're, hold on, I'm trying to come back over to you. I just pulled that up here. Hold on a second. I can't see you for some reason, but let's see what I can do here.
That's God saying, I'm first.
Can you see
first,
me?
Vinny second.
Yeah.
No, I can see you. Yeah, you can.
Gotcha. So I don't care if you're religious or you believe in the Bible or you don't. That's good advice.
Right.
Like, look at the outcome of what you're producing. Look, like if you're worried about your fitness and nutrition, look in the mirror. How do you look? Do you look like the Pillsbury Doughboy? Then you're not doing the behavior that's right. That's gonna produce the desired result. Or do you look like the statue of David? Okay, whatever you're doing is working.
Right.
Like, I saw a guy at the gym this morning. I'm like, man, that guy's fit. And I saw him do some sort of movement. I'm like, that's weird. Why is he's doing that wrong? Like, is he?
Yeah.
He looks pretty good to me.
Right.
Like, who am I to judge? Because he actually looks like he's pretty fit and pretty strong. And I'd actually like to look a lot like that guy. Who am I to judge based on his results?
Babe Ruth didn't swing the baseball bat correctly, according to coaches so far. It's like, okay, well.
Exactly.
Yeah. That's right.
Right. Exactly.
Yeah. No, I bring that up because it's, again, it's probably inconsequential to your message, but it just, I just hear those tenets, and it may help you understand someone where their kind of roots are, and but you're right. If you think the Bible is a cool book with some cool stories, or like literally the penned by God, it doesn't in any way change how awesome some of those messages are. Right? You from both folks, I think both angles, you can be like, damn, that's awesome. You know what I mean? So.
I know a lot of people who would not consider themselves religious, but they've studied theology.
Yep.
And they're an interesting one for me, because they don't have that spiritual religious connection to it, but from a pragmatic approach to life, they can actually see that a lot of the tenets of religion, whether it's Christianity or Buddhism or whatever it may
Yeah.
be, can actually lead somebody to a better life. So it's
Oh,
interesting.
100%. Yeah, I've had that conversation with folks, I think. And I think that's one of the issues we have in society. Without that something greater than myself assumption, it's tough to really work through some things, right? It is, that, I think AA is based on that, right? I forget the background in AA, we talked about that earlier, but there's always that sort of,
Higher
yeah, there's
power is what they
always
talk
that,
about.
I just need to give it up to something, right? And I think Christianity knocks out of the park with that. And a lot of the faiths do, frankly. And even if you don't know what that thing is, just having some obscure greater than myself thing that you're kind of giving something up to tends to be the basis of mindfulness, and even the secular beliefs. It always seems to have a general tenet there that helps. But and I heard one, I think,
Most people do. Like you hear a lot of people use the term
yeah,
universe. But if you listen to what they're saying, they're not talking about the universe as just some
yeah,
random
random atoms, right? Yeah,
thing. They're talking about it as a sentient entity. Like the universe will reward you if you do right. Okay, then you believe in a higher, like a sentient
right,
higher. You're saying that the universe is actively working in your behalf towards you, for you, if you do the right
right,
things.
right.
That's a
Yeah,
higher power. That's somebody
I've
who's spiritual.
absolutely, yeah, yeah. It's so funny you say that, man. I say it all the time. So I'm like, wait, so you saying the universe, like the random groupings of atoms that have absolutely no common organization or design or anything is going to help you? Well, you can't have both. You've got to kind of, you're just, I feel like that's a hedge against acknowledging some higher power. They don't want to go that far, but like, oh, the universe will reward you. And I've said that exactly. And I've had some conversations that get a little heated on that. I'm like, I'm not saying that you have to believe in the God that I'm talking about, but you got to at least admit that you're not saying that random grouping of atoms that's billions of years old is somehow going to align to help your cause. That makes no sense. You can't have it
Yeah.
both ways. Right?
Somebody told me, and they said, along the lines of what you say, hedge.
Mm,
And I don't know whether this is true or not, but it was an interesting thought. They said the reason that people say that is because they want the benefit of this higher power working on their behalf without the responsibility of living their life a certain way
mm,
and the accountability that comes with calling it
mm.
God. I don't know if that's true or not, but it's an interesting consideration. And I like to explore some of those
Yeah,
those
it's
things.
something there.